my name is Kelly Bluen. Welcome to another episode of Mini-Mandala Mondays. I make these videos each week as a way to just give you a few minutes of calm and guidance and some ideas on how to create beautiful little mandalas without using any special tools. So a mandala is typically created with a compass and maybe a protractor or a ruler. There's also special grid paper you can purchase online or at art stores. But my goal is to teach you how to make mandalas using very basic tools. So you need a pen, a pencil, an eraser, and a circular object like a coin. I also have a blending tool to do a little bit of shading. The pen I'm using is a micron PN, which just means plastic nib. So nothing special, use whatever you have on hand. I'm also using a 5" by 5" little sketchbook that I like to make my mandalas in. So I'm going to zoom in here. Try not to wiggle the camera too much. Okay. And I'm going to start by tracing the coin. So I just put it anywhere on the paper and I go all the way around the coin. All right, that is the start of our mandala. And then I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to make a horizontal line across the middle, nice and light, and extend it out on both sides. If you would like to use a ruler or a straight edge for this, go right ahead. Then I'm also going to make one going vertical, and I'm going to extend that out a ways. I also want to make diagonal lines, and this is where, often if you make it a little bit too far to the left or right, then you end up with a large area and a small area. So I'm going to make a little notch where I think the center is and try to line up there. So I'm going to make a little notch here and run out there and this way. Again, these do not have to be perfect. I think the goal of a mandala is to create calm, not to make you feel stressed. So we're just doing this as a process. And if you want a really perfect final project, then feel free to do it over again with better tools. But if you're just doing this for some calm, don't overthink the spacing. Okay, so I've got that first circle made. Now I'm going to add another one just in pencil for now. And I'm going to go about a pencil width out and all the way around. So I do it in pencil so that I've got the option to change it up. So if I feel like this wet side is too wide, this side is too narrow, I can change that up a little bit. So just try to get a nice size circle. Then I'm going to do one more circle, and this one's going to be maybe about 2 widths. So 1, 2. So I want to go right about here, and I'm just going to go all the way around. Now, if you would like, you can take a piece of scrap paper, and from the center, you could make a little notch. And then on this line, you could make a notch. And on this line, it kind of acts like a ruler to keep your circle and your area about the same size. So it's just kind of a fun little tool. if you would like. Okay, then I'm just going to connect those very carefully, very lightly, so I can erase my pencil later or change it if I need to. Just like that. Okay, there's my grid, and I can already see that this area is a little bit smaller than this area. That's okay. If you have any that are really bothering you, then just move it over a little bit. You know, you've got your pencil, you've got your eraser. Move it if you need to. Okay, let's get back to our pen. So I'm going to ink in this middle circle here. Like that. And then inside this middle area, not the center, but that next area, I'm going to put some bumps that go from one line to the next and touch the top. Like that. In each of these bumps, in the bottom center, I'm going to come up and make a tall loop that comes down back to that point, and then a little loop on each side. Tall loop, and then little ones. Pause at any time if I'm going too fast. Tall loop, two little ones. There we go. Now I have these little triangular areas left over. Feel free to leave those empty or fill them in with your pen and make them nice and dark. You could always add an orb and then fill them in. You can add some striping. There's so many options. I'm just going to aura, which means I'm going to come along the side here and pop back up. Come along the side. So an aura just means I'm kind of doing a trace, but a little ways away. Does that make sense? Just following that line, but outside of it a little bit. I think I'm going to leave mine there, but if you want, if you've got room, you can always add a second one. All right, now I'm going to add a very thin space around this. Just following right along that edge. As you can see, mine is wiggly and uneven. That's okay. We're enjoying that process. All right, for this big area here, I'm going to put a dot on the middle of the outside of each section. Just a little pen dot. And then from that dot, I'm going to kind of curve and come down to each of these lines. So curve down and curve down. Some sections will be wider than others. That's okay. Try to get that little curve in there if you can. So pretty. Before I fill those in, I'm going to do some work on the outside. So I've got my pencil line here. I'm going to start in the center of these two shapes, and I'm going to go up and make a petal, kind of like what I did down here. I'm going to go up and come back down to that point. Go up and come back down. The calming part about making mandalas is that muscle memory of repeating those shapes over and over again. Okay, now I'm going to show you two options of what you can do beside that. So let's pretend that I've got my little petals, and we put that one in the middle. So one option is to do two little petals on the sides. Another option is to do petals that go all the way up to that line. They're basically the same option, just changing up that petal. And then the last thing I want to show you is you could do a cute little spiral. So feel free to do what you want. I think I'm going to make my petals go all the way up to the top of the line. Like that. There are so many options for every part of making a mandala. And I don't want you to ever feel like you have to do what I'm doing. Do what you like. All right, I'm going to stop right there for a minute. The other thing I love about mandalas is you can create each section and then go back and add your details later. I kind of like that. Okay, so now I'm going to fill in these petals out here, and we're going to do a little bit more of an artistic thing inside them. Sometimes we just add striping or fill them in. We're going to do something a little bit different today. So I'm going to go to the top point of each of these petals, and I'm going to imagine a line coming down the middle. And actually, if you want, instead of imagining it, you could actually pencil in a little line, if you would like. Okay, now I'm going to go just to the left of that point, and I'm going to come down, and I'm going to come down on this side, and I'm doing a little bit of a curve. So come down and come down, so it makes the letter V, but a little bit of a curve to it. Down and down. Curve and curve. Curve down, curve down. Look how it already changes the look of those petals. Okay, so now from the bottom of that letter V, I'm going to come down and do a little curve out to the left with a spiral and a curve out to the right with a spiral. And I'm still keeping it pretty high. I'm leaving some space here to do some more work. So come down to the left in spiral, down to the right in spiral. Go all the way around. As you're doing this, remember to breathe slowly. Relax your shoulders. Relax your pen grip. Okay. Now, we've been making these little loop shapes. I'm going to do that same thing. Come out of that little tucked in area there. I'm going to come down and make a big loop and then two little ones on the side. Big loop, two little ones. Often when we do mandalas, we work from that inside circle out, even when we're decorating. And it's kind of fun to go to that outside area and work in towards the center. It's not something we always think about doing. Now, if you have room and if you would like to, in each of these corners, you can do that same thing. You can add kind of a bigger loop and two tiny ones. Maybe you only have room for two. Maybe you just want to put in one. Some of mine are really squeezed in there. That's okay. Using this shape a lot today. I love how you keep adding more and more details to a mandala, and it just looks so amazing. Okay, in these little diamond areas that were left when we made that V shape, I'm going to put a line down the center, and then I'm going to do another V in those little open areas. So a line down the center and another V. Then I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to aura over my three little bumps I made here. So I'm just going from one pointy petal, bumping over and stopping at that next pointy petal. And no matter what shapes you put in there, you should be able to do this little bit of an aura around the outside. And then I'm going to aura the point of that petal. So I'm just making a little mountain shape above each of those. So pretty. Okay, I'm going to go back to these 3 loops that I made, and I'm going to put a line and a dot in the center ones. Line and a dot. And on the 2 side ones, I'm just going to flick my pen from the bottom out. So I push down hard in the bottom, and I lift my pen and flick out. You can leave them empty if you'd like. Then I'm going to go back to the center area, and I'm going to add a line to the inside, creating a smaller circle. And I'm going to put a pen dot right in the very, very center where all of those lines intersected each other. And each of these little teeny areas, I'm going to put that same shape, that same little loop. And I'm just going to do a little mini flower. And I'm going to make that circle a little bit bigger. And that is all that I am going to do. If you would like to go back and add something inside these little petals, you can. You can also fill in these 2 lines with some little orbs or lines if you would like. You can aura this little flower in the middle, or draw some lines to kind of connect it if you don't like how it's floating there. Whatever you would like. But that's all I'm going to do with my pen for today. I'm going to pick up my pencil. I'm just going to do a tiny bit of shading today. So I'm going to start on the inside of this circle here. I'm just going to put a little, actually before I do that, I'm going to take my eraser, and I'm going to erase some of these lines. Sometimes I leave them in there, but when I'm shading, I like to get those out of there. Okay, sorry about that. All right, I'm going to put some graphite on the inside of this circle and around the outside of that flower. And then take my blending tool and push that out away from the flower. And then that outside line push in towards the flower. Nice. I'm going to keep a little bit of white space between the 2. In this next row, I'm going to put a little bit of graphite on the outside of that circle, going right over my little petals. And I'm just going to soften that out away from the center. Then I'm going to do the inside of that line. Where the petals touch the top. And push that towards the center. You can use a Q-tip for this part if you don't have a blending tool. And now I'm going to go at the bottom of these large petals and put a little bit all the way around that circle. When I make mandalas, I tend to just shade each little section. I don't shade each object like you would in a normal drawing. Just sort of adding some texture to these areas, or some depth. So I'm softening this and pushing it out. Like that. And on this very outer area where I put those 3 petals, I'm going to put graphite right along that edge. And let me show you what that looks like when I push it out. It kind of pushes those behind and makes this large petal pop out a little bit. So I'm putting some graphite right along the outside edge of those petals. We go all the way around. You don't need a lot. And then soften that by pushing it up and out. Pushing very lightly. And I think I'm done. The only thing that I might do is put a little bit on the center line. I don't know for sure. Out on these little petals and go out from it. See how that changes it a little bit? But I worry that might be too much graphite. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. There's our mini mandala. I think it's absolutely beautiful. As always, initial your work or write your name. Write the date, and I like to add a little journal entry about what's going on in my life. So feel free to do that. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.